Welcome everyone to the Selfie Seeker Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we are exploring something pretty intense, actually. It's called the Crossroads of Collapse.
Yeah. And we're going to be looking at it through a really powerful framework. It's from Hellen Modiba, Her Pathway to Sovereignty.
Right. And this framework, it's essentially a guide, isn't it, for navigating those really difficult transformations when life just, well, it strips away everything you thought defined you.
Exactly. It's about finding your feet again, finding your way back to yourself, and eventually maybe even finding freedom when the rug's been pulled out from under you.
Yeah, when the ground completely shifts.
It really is like a map for those times when your internal compass just feels, well, broken.
And for you listening, our goal today isn't really for you to memorize all the terms or, diagram the framework.
No, not at all, though we will link to it in the notes, of course, if you want to dig deeper later.
Definitely. But the real aim today is more visceral, maybe.
Yeah.
We want to let the stories, these really human stories of Daniel and Sophie who we'll meet, let them reveal how each stage feels.
Yeah, so you can perhaps recognize echoes of it in your own life, your own journey. Because these moments, while unique, they touch something universal.
That's what's so fascinating, isn't it? How these intensely personal collapses, they somehow echo wisdom that's, well, ancient. It's not just a modern thing.
Not at all. It's a universal passage. And speaking of ancient wisdom, let's start with a teaching that probably sounds familiar to many people.
Okay.
It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God.
Right. Heard that one.
Yeah. But for today, let's not approach it purely as religious doctrine. Think of it more as a metaphor for a universal human experience. It's quite an image, isn't it?
It really is. It's quite cinematic when you think about it. Let's just paint that picture for a moment.
Yeah.
Imagine yourself. Maybe you're a traveler from long ago. A successful merchant, perhaps. And you're approaching the city wall, and there's this gate. But it's not a grand entrance. It's a narrow, low stone gate. They actually called some gates the eye of the needle.
Right, literally.
And your camel, it's loaded down, not just with valuable goods, but with bundles that represent everything. Your status, your identity, your sense of self, all tied up with, creaking buckles and heavy weight.
All that accumulated stuff.
Yeah, and you reach out, you touch the rough stone of the archway, and the reality just hits you. There's only one way through this narrow passage.
The camel has to be unloaded.
Exactly. Those bundles, everything you've piled on, representing who you think you are, it simply won't fit. It cannot pass through.
Wow. That image just perfectly captures the essence of this passage, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's not just one tradition saying this fundamental need to shed things. It echoes everywhere.
Where else do we see it?
Well, you see it in Celtic myths, Heroes often have to shed their armor, their status symbols, the very things that protected them in the old world, to pass into the other world, to truly transform.
Right, the old defenses, the old identity, it's just too heavy for the new journey.
Precisely. Or think about the Aboriginal walkabout. Young people deliberately leave everything behind: community, possessions, their known role. They go out alone.
Into the wild, basically.
Yeah, and it's not just about physical survival. It's about finding out who they really are, stripping away the external definitions to discover their core self.
Shedding that childhood identity.
Exactly. And Sufi tales often talk about doors that are just too small to enter unless you completely empty yourself, even kind of humble yourself physically to get through.
Emptying yourself.
And Buddhist non-attachment, fundamentally, it's about releasing those mental and emotional burdens, right?
Yeah.
Understanding that clinging, holding on so tight to our identities and desires often just leads to suffering.
It makes me think of Native American vision quests, too. That isolation, the fasting. It's a stripping away of the familiar to gain insight, find purpose.
Yes. And even, Stoic philosophy grapples with this, figuring out what's actually in our control versus what isn't. It's about shedding the weight of worrying about external outcomes we can't dictate.
So the common thread through all of these different traditions, these stories,
it's this. To pass through these profound moments, these narrow gates, you have to release what no longer fits, what your old identity, with all its accumulated weight, whether it's stuff, status, reputation, even deeply held beliefs, just cannot carry forward.
It's like a crossroads where the person you've been meets the person you're becoming.
And the passage only allows the essential parts to continue.
And here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit confronting. Life itself often orchestrates these moments for us, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely, often without our permission.
It just removes what can't be carried forward. Everything falls apart. The camel is suddenly unburdened, whether you wanted it to be or not, and you're left standing there asking,
Is this a punishment? Did I
Right.
do something wrong?
or is it actually preparation? Preparation for something bigger, something more real?
That's the core question, isn't it? Because this deep dive, it isn't really about voluntary spiritual practice where you choose to let go. It's about involuntary transformation.
When life itself becomes the teacher.
Yeah, and collapse becomes the curriculum. And navigating that requires something different. It means acknowledging the terror, yes, but also the immense potential hidden within those moments.
Which brings us perfectly to our modern heroes for today's exploration.
Let's meet them.
Okay, so first there's Daniel. Everyone knew him as the Golden Touch investor.
Yeah.
Built his whole world around that.
Mm-hmm. And then there's Sophie, known everywhere as the confident expert, razor-sharp intellect.
Right. But Daniel, he suddenly loses everything, puts all on one bet, and it goes wrong. Catastrophically wrong.
And Sophie.
Yeah.
Her reputation just crumbles after this really public defeat in a viral debate, completely exposed.
So both of them, through these unexpected, really painful turns, find themselves approaching their own personal hero's needle, their own narrow gate.
And their stories really illuminate how this universal passage plays out in, real contemporary lives. And thankfully, we have a kind of map for this territory.
Which is the pathway to sovereignty framework you mentioned.
Exactly. And it actually came out of Hellen Modiba's own experience. She went through her own profound collapse, a period of deep surrender, and she was searching, desperately searching, for a way to navigate the chaos, to find her way back to her core.
So she didn't just, invent this in a vacuum. She drew on some really powerful, diverse sources of wisdom. Right?
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly well-grounded. For instance, when we talk about the different levels of consciousness that Daniel and Sophie moved through, she was really influenced by David Hawkins' map of consciousness.
Okay, yeah. That helps understand the different energy states we experience.
Precisely. And then her understanding of the physical impact of collapse, how it hit you in your body, that was profoundly shaped by polyvagal theory.
Which explains how our nervous system reacts to threat and safety.
Right.
And how that dictates our behavior.
Exactly. Fight, flight, freeze, all of that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the insights from Bessel van der Kolk's work, the body keeps the score.
Ah, yes. How trauma and transformation literally live in our bodies, not just our minds.
Right. Our physical self carries the imprint. It's not just metaphorical.
And she also incorporated internal family systems, or IFS.
Yes. Which gives us these amazing tools for meeting our own inner landscape with compassion, understanding all the different parts of ourselves that show up, especially in a crisis, and learning how to work with them, integrate them.
So it's really a comprehensive toolkit, blending cutting-edge science with, deep embodied wisdom.
For meeting both collapse and the openings that follow with real care. And the framework itself lays out 6 distinct levels we tend to move through.
Okay, what are they?
There's survival, then stability, self-awareness, integrity, wholeness, and finally, freedom.
Survival, stability, self-awareness, integrity, wholeness, freedom.
Now, obviously, everyone's journey is unique, right? But these levels, they form a kind of map, a reliable guide through what can feel like utter chaos.
Okay, let's dive in then. Let's start at the beginning, the rawest point. Level 1.
Let's do it.
Collapse. Survival. Okay, set the scene for this. It's the immediate aftermath, right? That raw shock.
Absolutely. It's when powerlessness just washes over you. Your body goes into absolute high alert. Red alert.
And your focus just narrows completely. It's all about immediate safety, just stopping the pain, whatever it takes.
That's it. Your primitive brain basically hijacks the system. It's pure survival, instinct taking over, and often in ways that feel chaotic, overwhelming, maybe even self-destructive from the outside.
Higher functions offline.
Completely. It's the oldest wiring kicking in.
Okay, let's bring Daniel back in, our golden touch investor. This hit him hard.
Oh, incredibly hard. He'd meticulously built his entire life, his identity, around this image, this almost magical ability to pick winners. It wasn't just his job, it was like his core self-worth.
His armor.
Totally. And he poured everything against all his usual advice, by the way, into what he saw as a guaranteed, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He was so sure.
He knew he was right. That certainty.
And then, the unthinkable. This perfect storm of global events hits. Geopolitics, sudden regulations, markets freezing up. Stuff no one saw coming.
Couldn't predict it?
Nope. And within weeks, boom. His portfolio, his entire empire, just decimated. Liquidity gone. The foundation of his identity just gone.
So how did he react? Did he retreat? Curl up?
No.
Yeah.
That's the thing about survival mode for him. His response was pure acceleration, like putting the pedal to the metal when you're already heading for a cliff.
Wow.
His sympathetic nervous system didn't just activate, it exploded. He described it later as this constant internal siren, this relentless pressure behind his eyes. He couldn't sit still.
Pacing the office.
Constantly. Phone glued to his ear, the outside world just a blur. Every call was a desperate gamble. Every email a frantic plea. He wasn't just working 20-hour days. He was living in this perpetual hyper-alert state.
Fueled by adrenaline.
Bitter, addictive adrenaline. Sleep. Impossible. His mind was like this supercomputer just churning through every possible, even impossible, recovery scenario. He remembers staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., not with despair, but with this terrifyingly sharp focus on phantom deals, convinced he could outthink the collapse, trade his way out.
But it wasn't really strategy at that point, was it?
No, it was primal, a desperate need to outrun the pain, mistaking frenetic manic activity for actual progress, trying to fix it faster and faster.
And this is where understanding the nervous system, like from polyvagal theory, really helps, right?
Absolutely critical. Daniel wasn't just stressed. He was in full sympathetic fight mode. His body perceived an existential threat market crash, felt the same as a predator attack to his ancient wiring.
So stopping felt like dying.
Exactly. So he didn't stop. He accelerated, burning through every resource, every relationship, desperately trying to control something totally uncontrollable. It's a classic and often destructive trap in the survival stage.
That raw fight or flight. Okay, let's look at Sophie, our confident expert. Her fall was different, but just as devastating.
Her identity was built on intellectual precision, advanced degrees, known for fearlessly taking down flawed arguments in public. This big televised debate on economic inequality, it was supposed to be her stage.
Another win for her.
That was the plan. But her opponent, he came at it differently. He didn't just disagree. He systematically, calmly dismantled one of her core arguments, exposed assumptions she hadn't really looked at herself.
Ouch.
And Sophie, famous for her quick wit, her ability to retort instantly, she just froze. Mind went blank. The articulate thoughts vanished, and the cameras caught it all. The silence, the deer-in-headlights look.
Oh, God. And that clip went viral.
Instantly, within hours. Survival mode descended, but for her, it wasn't manic activity. It was her nervous system flooding with shame-based activation.
Panic.
Public humiliation. The worst kind, for someone whose identity was built on intellectual invincibility. She became a meme, a target of ridicules online. Her phone buzzing constantly with notifications, speaking gigs vanishing overnight. She couldn't even open her emails. The anxiety was paralyzing.
The pain was immediate, acute, and totally public.
Yeah. And what's really key here, looking at both Daniel and Sophie, is how that primal survival response designed to protect us can actually trap us further.
How so?
Well, Daniel's manic acceleration wasn't getting him anywhere near recovery. It was false urgency, as Hellen Modiba might call it, burning resources, preventing clear sight. And Sophie's shame-based panic, that freeze response, shut down her ability to even see options, let alone act.
So the body's response, while understandable, can keep us stuck, like the body keeps the score describes.
Exactly. These primal responses override rational thought, locking us into patterns, frantic doing, or total shutdown.
As you hear these stories, maybe you, listening, can feel echoes of that raw powerlessness. That moment the bottom drops out, body on high alert, just trying to breathe.
It's intense. So a very simple practice for when you're in that survival mode is just focusing on basic safety and comfort, however small it seems.
Like what?
Like when you feel totally overwhelmed, just try taking one full conscious breath. Just one. Focus on the exhale, letting it go.
Okay.
And then ask yourself, very gently, what is one small thing I need right now to feel even fractionally safer or more comfortable? Maybe it's a warm drink. Maybe stepping outside for a second. Maybe just putting a hand on your heart.
Not trying to fix everything.
No, just immediate, gentle self-regulation. Let's try it now. Just inhale and release. Soften.
Okay. Moving on from that raw chaos of survival, we enter the next level. Let's talk about seeking ground, stability.
Right. But, and this is crucial, it's often not true stability yet. It's more like an attempt to regain control.
Trying to get back to normal.
Kind of a desperate push to restore what felt familiar, but often without really looking at what's fundamentally changed. It's like trying to find solid ground without honestly noticing the landscape is different now.
We mistake just functioning for actual recovery.
Very often, yes. You might be able to get out of bed, go through the motions, but this sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight response, might still be buzzing underneath. It just gets channeled differently.
How?
Into structured, often really rigid, attempts to reestablish order, to impose control on what still feels chaotic,
Okay, back to Daniel. How did he get here? He was accelerating.
until his body just gave out. After days of pure adrenaline and caffeine, he literally collapsed during a phone call. Couldn't hold the phone, hands shaking violently, voice thick with exhaustion. He couldn't think straight, which terrified him.
That was his wake-up call.
Sort of.
Hmm.
His catalyst out of pure survival anyway. And when he could finally stand without shaking, speak without his voice cracking, he mistook that basic functioning for real stability.
He thought he was okay again.
He told himself he was. His logic was, I just need better systems, a more organized approach, I can fix this. He channeled what little energy he had left into rigid schedules, elaborate strategic plans. He was convinced he could make a comeback through sheer willpower and better organization.
So he saw the exhaustion not as a signal to rest, but as proof he needed to be more organized.
Exactly. He created these insane 22-hour recovery schedules, mapping out every single minute, accepted every invitation he could get, trying desperately to restore his reputation, force his old golden touch identity back into existence.
Trying to systematize his way out of the collapse, clinging to control.
Purely, it wasn't genuine stability, it was rigidity born of fear.
And did it work?
The fragility showed through pretty quickly. He was pitching some potential investors, trying to get back in the game, and he heard himself making these hollow promises. The words felt false, even as he said them.
Oof, that internal dissonance.
Yeah. And when they politely declined, he just sat in his car afterwards, hands shaking on the steering wheel. But this time it wasn't exhaustion. It was this dawning, sickening realization that his brilliant strategies weren't actually working. The cracks were showing in his new stable facade.
And then he had that conversation in the cafe.
Right. Later that week, just by chance, he runs into this older, retired investor. And the guy says something simple but profound. Wealth can serve life, or life can serve wealth. The market has a way of teaching us which master we've been following.
Wow. Did that land immediately?
Daniel initially dismissed it. You know, easy for you to say. But the words stuck. Like a seed planted. Even if he wasn't ready for it to grow yet, it just lodged there.
External wisdom often shows up like that in this stage, doesn't it? A little crack in the control.
Exactly. Even if you don't fully get it yet.
Okay, what about Sophie? How did she shift into this stability phase?
Her catalyst was the dawning realization that the public humiliation, the viral clip, wasn't just going to fade away on its own. Ignoring it wasn't working. It was maybe even making it worse.
So she had to do something.
Right. And her sympathetic nervous system, still humming with anxiety, drove her to grasp at structure, at productivity. She needed to prove her intellectual worth again, prove the clip was a fluke.
So like Daniel, schedules and busyness.
Totally. Elaborate schedules, accepting every single speaking gig, every research opportunity, filling every waking moment with frantic productivity. It was an attempt to armor herself against future vulnerability, to intellectually outrun the shame.
Trying to rebuild the confident expert image through sheer volume of work.
Desperately. Mistaking activity for progress, trying to prove that viral moment wasn't the real her.
And how did that fragile stability hold up for her?
It crumbled at an academic conference reception. She walked into the room expecting, maybe hoping, for things to feel normal again. But colleagues who used to eagerly seek her opinion now avoided her eyes. She heard whispers.
Oh, brutal.
Despite being in a crowded room full of peers, she felt utterly, painfully isolated. A chilling confirmation that her attempt to control the narrative to appear stable and unaffected wasn't working. It was deepening her isolation, not fixing it.
So looking at both of them, the stability stage, it's easy to fool ourselves, isn't it?
So easy. We mistake busyness, new systems, just functioning for genuine healing. But often it's really a sophisticated form of denial, a highly organized way of avoiding the deeper truth that things have irrevocably changed.
You're clinging to the past, trying to force the old reality back.
Instead of honestly assessing what's actually here now.
Maybe you, listening, can recognize that impulse. Trying to systemize your way out of a crisis, creating rigid plans when maybe something else was needed. That urge to control. What are you trying to control right now that you maybe can't?
It's a powerful question. So a practice for stability is simply to notice when you feel yourself gripping too tightly, trying too hard to control things.
How do you notice?
Before making a big decision, just pause, take a breath, check in. Am I choosing this from fear, from that frantic need to control, or is there some clarity here?
And your body gives clues.
Always. Your shoulders, your jaw, are they clenched tight with fear? Or is there a little bit of ease, a subtle expansion? Feel your feet on the ground for a moment. That grounding can help you tell the difference.
Okay, so we've seen survival and that fragile attempt at stability. What comes next? Where do Daniel and Sophie go from here?
Well, this next stage is often the real turning point. It's where things start to genuinely shift internally.
Let's talk about awakening. Self-awareness. Sounds significant.
It is. It's the crucial turn towards clear seeing. Really starting to name your patterns, your motives, what triggers you. And importantly, recognizing the difference between who you truly are and the role you've been performing.
So the seeds planted earlier, the cracks in the facade, they start to demand real attention now.
Exactly. And the body, which, as we've said, has been sending signals all along, maybe screaming signals, finally starts to be heard. You move from just knowing something isn't working intellectually to really feeling it, understanding it in an embodied way.
Okay, so Daniel, his catalyst was that collision, right? The hollow promises in the boardroom versus the quiet wisdom from the cafe.
Yes. That dissonance became too loud, too uncomfortable to ignore any longer. He simply couldn't deny that all his manic activities, relentless push for a comeback, it wasn't serving his well-being, it was serving his ego, his desperate need to reclaim that old golden touch identity.
So how did self-awareness actually manifest for him? What did he start doing or seeing?
It started with admitting, probably just to himself at first, in a quiet, vulnerable moment, that his old patterns weren't working. They were just leading to more pain and frustration.
Acknowledging the failure of the strategy.
Yes. And then he started noticing the physical toll, really noticing the way his heart would race even when he was sitting still, the constant aching tension in his jaw from just sheer determination, the shallow, rapid breathing that had become his default state.
These weren't just symptoms anymore, they were messages.
Undeniable signals his body was sending, that his hyper-focused mind had been expertly tuning out. He began to consciously see the difference between his essential self, the curious, maybe even ethical person he knew existed underneath it all, and the golden boy role he'd been performing with such desperation.
Realizing that old identity just couldn't carry the weight of who he was becoming, or maybe who he wanted to become.
Exactly. It was the start of a real internal conversation, beginning to meet his own inner landscape with a bit more compassion, understanding the different parts of him, like internal family systems talks about. The driven part, the scared part.
It's a huge realization, isn't it? That the persona you built, even if it was successful, might just be too small now.
Profound.
Yeah.
And the body becomes the undeniable truth teller in this stage. You can't argue with a racing heart or clenched jaw in the same way you can argue with thoughts.
What about Sophie? What triggered her self-awareness?
For her, it was that double blow. First, that chilling isolation at the conference. Seeing her fears reflected in her colleagues' avoidance. That was painful data. But then, the unexpected conversation with Dr. Williams, that old colleague who approached her with genuine concern, not judgment.
What did he say again?
He just gently observed, "Sophie, I've been watching you tonight. You look like you're performing rather than participating. What are you really trying to prove here?"
Wow. Direct but kind.
And because it came without judgment, it pierced through her defenses. Her intellectual armor just shattered in that moment and went straight to the heart of her frantic efforts.
So what does she start to see?
She finally admitted to herself how utterly exhausting her desperate attempt to restore her old image, all that frantic productivity, really was. It was draining her nervous system completely.
On the physical cost?
She started noticing it consciously, how she held her breath whenever she felt challenged, activating that fight or flight subtly, the permanent tension in her neck and shoulders, the shallow breathing that went along with her constant vigilance, always scanning for criticism.
Performance anxiety, basically, but all the time.
Constantly. And she began to clearly see the difference between her essential self, the genuine scholar driven by real curiosity, and the expert persona she had built purely as protection against judgment.
Realizing her coping mechanisms weren't just failing, they were actively hurting her, preventing real connection.
Yes, preventing deeper engagement, preventing her from actually being present. This was her starting to truly listen to her body's signals, moving beyond the intellectual analyzing and into the felt somatic experience.
So for you listening, this stage, self-awareness, it's that moment of really honest self-reflection, when you realize your usual ways of coping are just exhausting you, and your body is giving you undeniable feedback.
It's about clear seeing, even when it's uncomfortable, and starting to trust that your body holds profound information.
So what's a practice for cultivating this self-awareness?
It can start very simply. Just begin noticing your reactions without immediately judging them or trying to fix them.
Just notice.
Yeah. When you feel triggered, when that old pattern kicks in, instead of reacting instantly, just pause. Ask yourself gently, what is this reaction trying to protect? What part of me feels threatened right now?
Looking underneath the reaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your body holds the answer. The tightness in your chest, the heat rising,
Ah.
what's that about? It's a source of deep information if we learn to listen with curiosity, not judgment.
Maybe just taking a breath helps create that space.
Absolutely. Just breathe. Maybe let your rib cage expand fully. Soften your shoulders. That tiny pause can create enough space for that curious noticing to happen.
Okay, so self-awareness is seeing clearly. But seeing isn't necessarily doing. What's the next step on the pathway?
Right. Seeing the pattern is one thing. Choosing differently, starting to live in alignment with what you're seeing, that's the next, often really challenging leap.
This sounds like alignment, integrity.
Exactly. And this is where you could say the rubber meets the road. It's
Yeah.
about consciously choosing actions that align with your deeper values, not your fears,
Even if it's uncomfortable.
especially if it's uncomfortable. It often involves repairing harm where possible and letting your actions genuinely reflect what matters most now, even if it feels unfamiliar or goes against the old programming.
It's moving from reacting to consciously choosing.
Precisely. It's the active embodiment of the self-awareness you've gained, taking it from insight into action.
Okay, Daniel again. What helped him make this leap into integrity?
A pivotal conversation with Marcus, his longtime mentor, someone whose respect Daniel valued more than almost anyone's. Marcus didn't yell or judge. He just quietly, pointedly asked him.
What was the question?
He said, Daniel, you're fighting so hard to get back to who you were. But what if who you were isn't who you're meant to become? What kind of leader do you want to be beyond just making money?
Oof, that's a deep one.
Daniel said it landed like a physical blow. He literally couldn't answer. And that inability to answer was crucial. It showed him the void where his deeper values should have been guiding him all along.
So that led him to seek more help.
Yes, it led him to work with a skilled coach. And this coach immediately saw what others missed, the physical manifestation of his stress. Shoulders constantly hunched, barely breathing, his whole system stuck in chronic activation.
The body telling the story again.
Always. The coach asked him point blank, how can you make clear, values-aligned decisions from a body that's constantly braced for impact, always in sympathetic overdrive?
Good question. So what did they do?
The coach introduced practices that seemed almost ridiculously simple at first, like conscious breathing techniques, specifically to regulate his vagus nerve.
Ah, the nerve that connects the brain to the body, involved in calming down.
Exactly. Activating his parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest side allowed his body to shift out of chronic fight or flight. And that, in turn, opened access to his social engagement system.
Which is?
It's the neural circuitry for calm connection, for truly seeing and responding to others, and crucially for making decisions from a place of clarity and safety, not primal panic.
So simple things like breathing, shoulder releases, just pausing.
Tiny shifts that had a profound impact on his internal state. It wasn't just mental reframing, it was retraining his nervous system.
And how did this translate into integrity into his actions?
As Daniel learned to slow down, to stay present in his body, his choices started to change. He learned viscerally to distinguish between his body's old survival signals, that adrenaline rush, the manic energy that felt urgent but led nowhere good, and his body's wisdom signals.
What did the wisdom signals feel like?
Like a quiet expansion in his chest when an opportunity genuinely aligned with his values, versus that subtle nausea or tightness in his gut when an old pattern, like needing to prove himself, was driving the bus. He started making choices aligned with deeper values, not just the terror of failing again.
But you mentioned setbacks earlier. Was it a smooth transition?
Oh, definitely not linear,
Oh.
which is so important. At one point, tempted by the promise of quick, easy money, Daniel overcommitted to some deals that really echoed his old, aggressive style.
Oh.
And when they started to wobble, he felt it immediately, that familiar sympathetic nervous system kicking back in, pulling him towards frantic fixing, that old manic energy. The programming runs deep.
So what happened? Did he fall back completely?
This time was different. His coach helped him pause and notice. What's your body telling you right now, Daniel? The tight shoulders, the racing heart, they were clear signals he was operating from the old script. And that awareness, combined with the practices he now had, allowed him to pivot, to step back, acknowledge the nonlinearity, and choose alignment again over the quick, unsustainable fix.
Learning from the setback instead of being derailed by it. Okay, what about Sophie's journey into integrity?
Hers also involved a key conversation, this time with Dr. Chen, a trusted peer. Dr. Chen gently pointed out, Sophie, your constant defense of your ideas. It isn't actually serving your long-term vision, it's serving your fear of being wrong again. What would happen if you just let your work speak for itself, instead of trying to make yourself invulnerable?
Another truth bomb. How does Sophie take that?
It was a critical turning point. It actually led her to explore something she, as a rational academic, had previously dismissed. Mindfulness-based somatic practices, breath work, body scanning.
Things focused on body awareness.
Exactly. At first she approached it very analytically, of course, but gradually she started to notice the subtle, embodied patterns. How she'd unconsciously hold her breath when challenged, how her shoulders would creep up towards her ears, how her whole body would stiffen defensively when she felt intellectually threatened.
The armor manifesting physically.
Totally. So her move into integrity became this embodied practice, learning to pause before responding to criticism, checking in with her body first.
How did that help?
She learned to recognize the signals. Shallow breath, clenched jaw. That meant she was operating from old defensive patterns. Deep, grounded breath, relaxed posture. That meant she could actually engage with the ideas being presented, rather than just protecting her ego, her image. This physical shift enabled a much deeper intellectual integrity.
Wow. Changing her physical state changed her ability to engage.
Profoundly. But again, not linear. She got offered this high-profile media spot, a perfect chance to publicly rebuild her reputation after the viral disaster. The old Sophie would have jumped at it.
But the new Sophie?
Her body immediately signaled a mismatch, a subtle nausea, a tightness in her chest. It just felt off, hollow. More about damage control and ego repair than genuine intellectual contribution.
So what did she do?
She declined it, which took huge courage, an act of real integrity. She chose instead to focus on projects that genuinely sparked her curiosity, that felt aligned with the scholar she was becoming, not just the image she used to project.
Choosing authenticity over optics.
That's it. So for you listening, integrity is about that powerful choice to act from your deepest values, even when it means turning away from the seemingly obvious path, the quick fix, the familiar pattern that promises relief but doesn't truly align.
And trusting your body as a guide.
Your body is your most trusted guide here. It's like a living barometer of your truth. So, a practice for integrity. Before making important choices, take that deep breath. Ask yourself, does this align with who I'm becoming? Does this feel expansive or constricting in my body?
Trust the gut feeling.
Trust the gut, the chest, the shoulders. Those subtle physical cues signal alignment or mismatch. It's learning to trust that internal compass. Notice right now, is there tension in your jaw, your shoulders? Can you just soften them a little before your next decision? That physical shift can change the wisdom of your choice.
Okay, we've moved through survival, stability, self-awareness, and now integrity. Where does the pathway lead next? It feels like we're getting somewhere calmer.
We are. The next stage is wholeness, inner steadiness. This is where things really start to integrate. There's a growing sense of inner steadiness, trust, and authentic connection both with yourself and others.
And your identity isn't so tied up in external things anymore.
Exactly. Less tied to roles, outcomes, what other people think. Life starts to feel more spacious. Less driven by that constant underlying need to prove yourself, protect yourself, or perform.
It sounds like a significant integration of everything learned so far.
It really is. The nervous system, which has been learning how to regulate through the previous stages, maybe through conscious practice like Daniel and Sophie did, now operates with more fluidity.
What does that mean, fluidity?
It means it can shift appropriately. It can activate when needed for a challenge, for focused work, but it can also access deep rest and reflection easily. It's not stuck in chronic high alert or shutdown anymore. There's a genuine settling within.
So for Daniel, how did wholeness show up?
It emerged as his sense of self-worth became less and less dependent on external validation. He wasn't constantly checking the market or just seeking approval to know he was okay. His focus shifted from just external metrics to an internal sense of purpose, of contribution.
A fundamental okayness regardless of results.
Yes, exactly that. A baseline of inner sufficiency. And his nervous system reflected this. It learned that fluid regulation, appropriate activation when needed, like for a tough negotiation, but then easily returning to a state of calm, deep rest afterwards, allowing for reflection.
His inner world became steadier, less reactive.
Much less reactive to market swings or people's opinions, because his core sense of self wasn't tied to them anymore. Those physical practices he adopted, the breathing, the pausing, weren't just techniques now. They were a trusted internal compass, guiding his energy and decisions naturally.
And his decisions started serving something larger.
That's a key sign of wholeness. When his nervous system was regulated, when he felt grounded, his choices seemed to naturally consider not just his own interests, but the broader good, the well-being of his ventures, his partners, the community. An expansion beyond ego.
He wasn't just chasing wealth, he was cultivating it differently.
As a tool for positive impact. Yes, it indicates that fundamental shift where you're no longer the sole center of your own universe. Your actions start to consider the ripple effect. This is where responsible power really begins to emerge.
And Sophie, how did wholeness manifest for her?
A very similar internal shift. Her identity became less tied to being right, less defensive, and much more connected to simply being authentic. The need to win arguments, to have all the answers, that pressure just lessened significantly.
The fear of being wrong diminished.
Dramatically. And like Daniel, her physical practices became a reliable compass. She noticed that when she spoke from that place of alignment, her voice had a different quality, steady, open, unafraid of complexity, or admitting she didn't know everything.
She could hold nuanced positions without needing to rigidly defend them.
Exactly. And she could feel it in her body. She could sense when she was slipping back into performing, maybe a tightness creeping in, and she could consciously choose not to. She could let her genuine curiosity lead instead of her defensiveness.
So for you listening, wholeness is that profound internal shift. Your value isn't coming from your achievements, from being the golden touch or the confident expert. It's coming from an unshakable inner knowing, a deep well of self-trust that sustains you, regardless of what's happening externally.
It's a beautiful stage of integration. So a practice for wholeness is really about learning to trust that quiet knowing that emerges naturally when your breath is deep, your posture is grounded, your nervous system is settled.
Cultivating that inner state.
Yes. And trusting that when you operate from there, your decisions will naturally tend to serve not just yourself, but the bigger picture. There's a quiet confidence that doesn't need shouting or external validation. Let's just take a breath together now. Feel your chest opening. Exhale completely. Can you feel that potential for internal spaciousness?
Okay, we've arrived at the final stage of the pathway to sovereignty. What comes after wholeness?
We reach the summit, you could say. This is freedom, responsible power.
Freedom sounds liberating.
It truly is. This is where you fully embody responsible power and a kind of quiet authority. You find you can hold influence, or wealth, or visibility, whatever form your power takes, but hold it lightly.
Lightly? How so?
Meaning it's held in service to the whole, to something larger than yourself, rather than being driven by ego needs, the need for validation, control, or accumulation. It's the ultimate integration of all the lessons learned through the collapse and transformation.
So you're not free from the world, but free within it.
Beautifully put. Free within it, using your power, your gifts, consciously and ethically.
So, Daniel, what did freedom look like for him? What was the catalyst?
It came, again, unexpectedly. He was at some community event and ran into Sarah, a former colleague he hadn't seen her in years. And she had quietly built this really impressive, sustainable business, employed lots of people in meaningful work. And she just carried herself with this unmistakable, humble power.
No flash, just substance.
Exactly. And Daniel, curious, asked her about her success. She smiled and said something that just clicked deep within his now transformed understanding. She said, "I learned that wealth is a tool, not a trophy. The more responsibly you hold it, the more it multiplies in ways that truly matter."
Tool, not a trophy. That's powerful.
It landed perfectly for Daniel at that moment. Operating from freedom, he truly got it. He understood he could hold influence, wealth, visibility lightly, in service, not driven by ego.
And his body was still his guide.
Absolutely. His body, now a trusted ally, could clearly sense when opportunities aligned with his deeper purpose versus when they were just seductive echoes of old patterns proving himself, accumulating for accumulation's sake. He wasn't compelled by external pressure anymore. He was guided by that internal compass of integrity and purpose.
So what was the outcome? Did the wealth return?
What returned was remarkable. Not just wealth, but wealth held completely differently. Wealth imbued with purpose. His investment started creating positive ripple effects. Good jobs, useful innovations, partnerships that benefited everyone involved. His internal alignment finally matched his external actions. His influence genuinely served the well-being of the whole.
Still the golden touch, but the gold was serving something bigger now.
Exactly. So the eye of the needle for Daniel, that narrow passage, it had been the invitation to release that rigid identity of the unshakable golden boy, defined only by market wins. And passing through it, he discovered his true power wasn't in never falling, but in how gracefully, how responsibly he could rise and serve from that rising.
Rishab.
Seeing wealth as a stewardship.
A responsibility, not just a reward. Okay, Sophie's shift to freedom. What triggered that?
Also an unexpected invitation. A small niche conference focused on ethical leadership reached out. But they didn't ask for her usual academic expertise.
What did they ask for?
They asked her to share her experience specifically, her experience of public failure and professional rediscovery.
Wow, to talk about the viral debate, the thing she was most ashamed of.
Exactly. It felt incredibly risky. The old Sophie, even the Sophie in integrity, might have balked. Too vulnerable.
But the Sophie operating from freedom.
She accepted. And when she stepped onto that stage, something amazing happened. Speaking from freedom, her nervous system fully regulated, calm and present, she shared the story. Not as a victim, not defensively, but honestly. She talked about how that public humiliation taught her the crucial difference between expertise that armors you and wisdom that opens you, between needing to be right and daring to be real.
No pretense, just raw honesty.
Totally. Her body felt grounded, expansive. Her voice was clear, undefended. And the audience, they connected with her humanity in a way they never had with her polished perfection. They felt her wisdom, her lived experience, her courage.
They connected with her authenticity, not just her intellect.
Precisely. And what returned to Sophie's life wasn't just her voice or reputation, but her voice held completely differently. Speaking engagements multiplied, yes, but now she was invited for her wisdom, her ability to hold complexity, to embrace vulnerability as strength. Her influence started serving the development of others, inspiring them to step out from behind their own armors.
Her gifts, freed from protecting her identity, could truly serve the whole.
Beautifully said. Her internal alignment matched her external impact. So for Sophie, the eye of the needle was that invitation to release the unshakable expert role, to discover that true authority comes not from invulnerability, but from the capacity to stay curious, adaptive, authentic, even when challenged. What she thought was her greatest weakness became her profound strength.
Leading with open-hearted wisdom. So for you listening, freedom is that ultimate liberation, being authentically you, using your unique gifts for something greater, with that quiet authority and impact that comes from deep within.
It's a powerful place to arrive. So a practice for freedom, it's about holding your influence, whatever it is, lightly. Notice when wielding power feels heavy, contractive, versus when it feels expansive, joyful, generative.
And using your gifts in service.
Critically, using your gifts in service of something larger than just yourself, understanding that true power is often collaborative, shared, life-affirming. Just notice your posture right now. Can you feel your body supported, grounded, maybe ready to contribute from that place?
Now, we've walked through these 6 stages, survival to freedom, but it sounds almost too neat, too linear. Life isn't usually like that, is it?
Not at all. And that's incredibly important to emphasize. Movement through these levels is rarely a straight line. Life is messy. Transformation is messy. So let's talk about setbacks.
Right, because they happen.
They absolutely happen. We saw glimpses of it with Daniel, right?
Right.
Market volatility could still suddenly trigger those old manic patterns that urge to accelerate and control. The fear could resurface.
And so
Despite all her insights, she still faced temptations. Maybe an opportunity arose that promised quick image repair, playing to the old need for external validation. Or a critique hit a raw nerve, tempting her back into defensiveness. The pull of the old self, the old survival strategies, remained strong.
So these setbacks, these moments of falling back into old patterns, they aren't failures. We shouldn't beat ourselves up.
Definitely not failures. They are incredibly valuable pauses. Think of them as turning points, maybe opportunities for even deeper awareness. They remind us this is a practice, a journey, not a destination we arrive at and stay forever.
Each return to an earlier stage is a chance to integrate the lessons more deeply.
Exactly. Maybe with more compassion this time, more understanding of why that pattern exists. It's part of the spiral path of growth.
And what's really striking, listening to Daniel and Sophie, is that even though their collapses were so different, financial versus reputational, the underlying pathway seems the same.
It is. And that's the universality Hellen Modiba points to. Whether the trigger is financial ruin, public failure, a relationship ending, a health crisis, losing a loved one, any major loss. The same fundamental structure tends to underlie these human openings. Life removes what we can no longer carry forward into the next chapter.
So the 6 levels, survival, stability, self-awareness, integrity, wholeness, freedom, they reveal themselves regardless of the specific trigger.
The terrain looks different for each person, the details are unique, but the underlying arc of the journey, that movement from constricted survival to expansive freedom, follows this same kind of pattern. It seems to be an architecture of human transformation.
And the constant invitation throughout is
To release what we think we cannot possibly live without, that identity, that status, that relationship, that certainty, in order to discover what we cannot live meaningfully with anymore. That old way of being.
your former identity was just too small for the person you're becoming.
Precisely. Life is inviting you into a larger version of yourself.
So reframing these crossroads, they aren't punishments.
They are preparations. There are moments when life itself becomes the teacher, offering us this often painful but ultimately liberating opportunity to shed what weighs us down and step into a more authentic, more powerful, truly sovereign way of being.
And if you listening recognize yourself somewhere on this pathway, in Daniel's story or Sophie's,
Know that you aren't alone. That passage, that crossroads you might be facing, however disorienting or scary it feels right now, it is also an opening, a gateway.
Okay, so let's make this really practical. For listeners who might be navigating their own crossroads, what are some next steps, actionable takeaways?
Great idea. Let's offer 3 things you could try, maybe even within the next 24 hours.
Okay, number 1.
First, just notice where your body holds tension right now. Is it your jaw, your shoulders, your gut? Don't try to fix it or analyze it too much. Just observe with simple curiosity. Tension there.
Simple noticing. Number 2.
Second, take a moment, maybe pause this deep dive and ask yourself honestly, what am I trying to control right now that I actually cannot? What's the true weight I'm carrying by trying to control the uncontrollable? This can reveal hidden attachments and where your energy is draining away.
Powerful question. And number 3.
Third, take one small action. Just one. Make it align with your deeper values, not your fears. It doesn't have to be huge. Maybe it's choosing 5 minutes of quiet reflection instead of frantic scrolling. Maybe it's speaking one small, honest truth to someone safe. Just one step towards integrity.
Notice tension, question control, take one value-aligned action. Simple but potent.
And for more ongoing support, the Pathway to Sovereignty framework itself offers a really structured approach, with tools drawn from consciousness mapping, nervous system regulation, somatic awareness. It's a profound map for these journeys. We've linked it in the notes.
And a really important caveat here.
Yes. Crucially, if you are deep in survival mode right now, if you're struggling with basic functioning, feeling overwhelmed, truly unsafe, please consider reaching out for professional support. Therapists, crisis lines, get the immediate help you need. This pathway works best when you have a baseline of safety and support. Please take care of yourself.
Absolutely essential. Okay, as we wrap up, let's leave our listeners with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, here it is. The needle's eye isn't an ending, it's a beginning. What waits on the other side of your narrow opening?
In letting go of what cannot pass through, we don't actually lose ourselves. We find ourselves. And in that finding, we often discover we are far larger, far more resilient, and far more capable of responsible power than anything we ever thought we needed to cling to.
The crossroads of collapse, when navigated with awareness, with courage, with care, truly becomes the gateway to genuine freedom.
Your story isn't ending, it's finally beginning.
And as mentioned, you can find the Pathway to Sovereignty framework linked in our notes. We'll also link to a resource called Path to Choosing Joy, which is a 21-day journaling journey designed to help align with who you're becoming.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for navigating this deep territory with us today.
Thank you. It's powerful terrain.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this exploration has offered not just information, but maybe a sense of clarity, perhaps even some courage for your own unique journey. We'll see you next time.
Climb the staircase, breath by breath, with compassion and presence we rise from stress, from fear to peace, from shame to grace. Climb the staircase to sovereignty. When you feel unsafe, too much to bear, you shut down or flare, you vanish or glare, your heart beats fast, your breath runs tight, you just want out or to make it right. That's survival, the you that just wants to survive.
What you feel is complete powerlessness, a cry for safety, not for success.
Climb the staircase, breath by breath, with compassion and presence we from shame to grace. Climb the staircase to sovereignty. When you feel the pressure to fix or prove, you hustle hard, you never stop or move. You shrink your voice to keep control. You manage the threat, but it takes a toll. There's stability, the you that's trying to keep things intact. What you feel is the pattern unwind. You are no longer lost in the mind. Climb the staircase, breath by breath. Let presence be your steady lift. From fear to peace, from shame to grace. Climb the staircase to sovereignty. When you feel the courage to live what's true, to honor your values and what you do, you choose your voice without defense. Even if the world stays tense, that's integrity. The you that remembers what you stand for. What you feel is steady ground. Truth walks with you, strong and sound. Climb the staircase, breath by breath. Let your truth be the lift through doubt. From fear to peace, from shame to grace. Climb the staircase to sovereignty. When you feel unshaken, calm inside, you no longer chase or need to hide. You know your worth is not up for trade. You walk through life unafraid. That's freedom. The you that trusts the road ahead. What you feel is space to be rooted, open, wild and free. Climb the staircase,